You are watching Air EnB, Earl and Brent's New York Sports Talk, and on this video, we will talk the conflict between China, Hong Kong, and the NBA. All that coming up right now. Okay, Earl, we're talking the China, Hong Kong NBA conflict. Please tell me your opinions.
Yeah. So big topic in the NBA, and it's amazing. The stories giving, even in the preseason, it's crazy, right? You think about the off-season acquisitions, and now this kind of international conflict, if you will. And basically summed up, obviously everybody knows a Daryl Morey tweet, who is the Houston Rockets general manager, who has a huge contingent of Chinese followers, obviously due to the long tenure of the Hall of Famer Yao Ming and the connection with him and the CBA.
Jeremy Lin. And
Jeremy Lin, who's Taiwanese, but really having a connection with the CBA, which is the Chinese Basketball Association. So there's a huge connection with the Rockets in this particular population. And so when you're talking about somebody associated with the team, you should be a little sensitive in terms of the communication and what happens, because they are a business partner when you look at it at the end of the day. Even when you feel as strongly as we all do about democracy and freedom, you also have to understand some of the norms that just are not afforded to you, unfortunately, in other places. And I think it could have been handled better. I wish we weren't here to kind of have these conversations. I do want the people of Hong Kong or of any country, if they feel the right and need to fight and beat down their oppressors, so to speak, I'm all for it. But in terms of where we are right now, and now LeBron kind of stepping in and making his comment the other day,
Which one?
Just his statement in terms of like what he felt about Daryl Morey. And basically he just said that he felt that he was uneducated in terms of speaking on the matter, which I don't know if LeBron James spoke with Daryl Morey, but I think that's
I think LeBron's mistake was he initially made a financial comment in terms of that's bad for business.
It's implied. It could have been implied. It's just one of those things you don't have to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. And then the comment I heard after that was the safety comment, where he was saying, why are you saying this when our player's over there right now? Because Houston was over there playing. I don't understand the timeliness of Amori's comments and the fact that your team of all teams to be saying anything negative about China in general. I could understand if it was the Clippers, the Pelicans, the Knicks, whoever. But the fact that it was Houston, of all things, of all teams, and why would you make that statement while your team is over there? It's almost like he wanted to start controversy. Do you think he will get fired?
Absolutely not. And I'll say this. I do not. I do not, unless it's performance based. But at this point, he's held his part of the job.
Well, hold up now. As we found out with that scumbag for the Clippers that own the Clippers, you are affecting everyone else's money. It's not Best Buy.
I understand.
But, you know what I'm saying? Now there is the other fold of this is the other part of this is they've now cut off Houston Rockets in search engines in China. You can't stream them, and it's a multi-billion-dollar market in China. The NBA is. So you're affecting the pockets of every team in the league, and you're a GM. You're not even an owner. I'm surprised it hasn't. I know what you're saying. It didn't happen yet. It probably won't. I'm surprised it hasn't.
I just think at this point it's kind of one of those principle things, right? It's like, man, listen, we do believe in free speech, freedom of speech, right? As Americans, of course. But one of the things that Adam Silver kind of spoke about is that we stand behind our personnel and our employees and the players. It'd be it'd be really hard pressed for them to kind of like do that and acquiesce to the Chinese government pretty much. Because when you're talking about it, it's like I get it. It's
They're
billions.
catering to the money
It's
and
billions of
not
dollars.
their
But
message. I have a
you have
problem with that.
I would let the professional just massage that relationship over time. And sure, there might be an initial hit, but I think the demand is that the Chinese people want to see quality NBA basketball, and I think there's going to be some, I'm not going to say pushback because they're not going to probably tolerate that, but there's going to probably be some ways for NBA games to make sure they're there, whether it's another team that has the opportunity to.
Yeah, it seems like their only issue is with the Rockets, which is
Exactly.
because
Right.
the Rockets is what opened up the door.
Right.
Remember T-Mac, would be injured for a lot of the season, but he would be voted to the All-Star team just because he played with Yao, because those votes were coming from China.
Absolutely. And the crazy thing is that, the collateral damage that happened from that tweet is that a lot of players that just really recently signed with some of these Chinese companies, like, Li Ning, who is D Wade's shoe company that he endorses in China, like Kyle Kuzma, I think recently signed on with them, and
Wow.
and then got released out of his contract. So they're just severing ties with all the NBA. And so
they released the NBA players from the sneaker contract.
So there was a couple. So there's collateral damage that's happened from this that doesn't feel great.
Well, in that case, they're attacking. First of all, Wade isn't even in the league. He's a Hall of Fame legend, and they've just nixed him. I mean, that's an issue. It sounds like they have a big principal issue.
So Wade, I don't know if Wade's contract. I think it was more maybe some of the current players. But again,
still, if they're not on the Rockets,
D Wade has made all of his money. He's retired. Love the brother.
That's not the point.
His shoe contracts are done. But I mean, maybe he could have been selling sneakers still. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, that's why he did it.
Well, listen, maybe
you don't think
maybe he'll be a sneaker free agent. He'll go to Adidas.
Yeah, but it may not sell the same because you're going to a different market. Like how Stephon Marbury was used up here in America, but he became a new life over there. Same thing with Meta World Peace.
Yeah, I met the brother. He's awesome, man.
You did?
Yeah.
Where'd you meet him?
It was an event at my old company that I met him at. It was like Josh Norman was there. I don't want to do too much name dropping, but
did you get to associate?
I did get to act with both of them. They're awesome guys.
What did you call him? Did you call him Ron or Meta?
Meta, of course. I called him by his name. It's funny. My coworker kind of slipped up and called him Ron Artest, and I was like,
Oh, I'm calling him Ron. If I ever meet him, I'm not calling him Meta World Peace. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Or whatever name. What was his Chinese name? He had a different Chinese name too.
Did he have a different name?
Yeah. I'm not. Listen, I'm not 100%, but it was something like I don't want to. I don't remember what it was.
I don't remember that, but but it surprised me. No.
Well, listen.
Yeah, I think he's actually still living in California. I think he's living in SoCal.
Yeah, he's doing some interviews.
He's maneuvering. Business wise, he's very business savvy. He's definitely trying to penetrate like a lot of different. He's in venture capital.
He's involved. Oh, he's in venture capital.
He's starting to invest a little bit. Yeah, I mean, he's been at my company a couple of times, and he's made the rounds up here in San Francisco and does appearances. So he's definitely making the right move and staying active, man. So shout out to Meta. We're big fans of the show. If you ever want to come on, please let us know.
Well, I think he was on the Knuckleheads podcast, which I find to be very, very entertaining.
Which one? Is that the one with Quinn, Q Rich and
is that S. Jack, Steven Jackson, or no?
No.
But they have on different people.
Darius Miles.
They had on Gary Payton. They've had on a bunch of people. But Artest is also involved in a documentary on mental health issues.
And I think again, my wife is a therapist, and I'm huge into the mental health efforts, and I think that's somebody who has raised a tremendous amount of awareness to look where he is today, and to have the ability to take care of his needs with, obviously the proper, maybe medication and therapy as well too. He's obviously a better person, and raising the awareness that it's okay, and just some people are different, and just need to address it.
Getting back to the issue with China and Hong Kong,
absolutely.
I want to make a statement, then I have a question for you. And then, okay, remember the rapper Jin? And he signed a Rough Rider. Remember, he used the big Freestyle Friday.
Rough Riders. I like Jin, man. I liked him, man.
He was excellent. He would do the freestyle. I would tune into the Freestyle Fridays on 106 in Park.
Right.
Well, Jin, he went over to Hong Kong after the whole Rough Riders thing, whatever. His career never kicked off. He went over to Hong Kong. And I heard an interview with him. He's now back in America because he was having a child being born, and he wanted his child to be born in America. So that's why he came back over. But he was explaining that he was the Justin Bieber of Hong Kong.
Oh, I can imagine.
He said
he's an American dude of Chinese descent that was coming over and had some street cred, know.
And so, it was a good, it was a good rapper.
Absolutely.
And he said his face was on billboards and everywhere. He said, like you said, Justin Bieber of Hong Kong, but he said when he stepped out of Hong Kong into other areas of China, nobody knew him.
Yeah.
He was explaining that Hong Kong is its own entity.
Absolutely.
And that's what this is. He said there's 500 million people in Hong Kong, and he said it's so concentrated. My question to you is, Adam Silver has been a progressive, leader of the NBA, a progressive commissioner / leader of the NBA.
Absolutely.
Do you find it, because I find it a little contradictory, maybe even more than a little contradictory, that you're supporting that type of control in another country because of money, but yet you push the progressive message here, which would lean towards, obviously, democracy, free speech, free will, blah, blah, blah?
This is going to sound like a horrible answer, but I'm going to answer this from the business perspective.
All right.
I know. When I think about this,
we understand the business perspective.
So I'm going to give you a couple of perspectives. So what I'm thinking about it like this: when you're dealing with a certain country, you're in their country, you deal with their business norms. Whether you're from X, Y, Z, I'm not talking that I'm not talking about bribing and engaging in those kind of activities, but sometimes in some parts of other countries, those things
you're not talking about supporting murder.
I'm correct. I'm talking
I know
about
what you mean.
You need to kind of follow the norms, and sending out a tweet. It was Daryl Morey just sent out a 7-word tweet that got us here to the point that the NBA is losing millions, and now LeBron James had to respond and really not, people now in Hong Kong are mad because they're like, what are you supporting mainland China? So he's worried about losing money, because he's coming out with a new movie, Space Jam 2, pretty soon, and so he's thinking about his pockets as well too. So he's he's thinking about mainland China is a huge partner in this, and they are.
Yeah.
So, but on the human rights spectrum,
he deleted that tweet too. He got pressured to delete it.
I get it, but it's still there. But listen, man, on the other hand, on the human side, there is a big issue sometimes when you look at some of the human rights stuff, and but again, America engages in business with China. So again, I don't think it's up to the players to have to be the ones to answer to these kind of questions, because these are really more political, situations that the government should make the standard of whether or not these countries should, or these organizations should be dealing with China, because all of them are there. Apple, Walmart, all these other countries or companies that are
the computers that we're streaming on right now.
Right. So pretty much it's our business relationships are really deep with China. So I don't think it's the NBA's right to. It's not. This is not the NBA's
Let,
place to be kind of like in this situation dealing with international conflict.
hey, let's face it. Our society couldn't exist tomorrow without Chinese influence.
Yeah.
Without China, what would our nation be?
Well, on another business angle, we actually owe a ton of debt to China because we borrowed money from China at some point.
China,
Throughout our.
China has swallowed American debt.
Yes.
That's all you need to know. That means that America is indebted to China, the same way they're indebted to the Federal Reserve. China's the new Federal Reserve. Yeah. I mean, now a question about the Rockets team for this upcoming season, which is kicking off on the 22nd. Got one question for you about the Rockets. Do you think Westbrook and Harden can coexist? That's a tough one.
So when you say coexist, do you mean make it to the Western Conference Finals, or you're talking about a chip?
I'll be more specific.
Okay.
I'll be more specific. Westbrook was able to coexist with Paul George being that number 2 because Paul George doesn't need the ball, right?
Correct.
So they actually were in first place for some of the season. They looked good, fell apart in the playoffs. Okay, happens to a lot of teams, right? In Houston, forget the Melo stuff. Chris Paul is out of Houston because he couldn't coexist with Harden. Harden demanded the ball more. Paul wanted to run the offense. Harden wanted the offense. They got into a conflict. Paul's gone. Paul is a true point guard. So he's giving you the rock. Russell Westbrook is a shoot-first point guard that does get a lot of assists, but he's also a me guy. He needs the rock in his hand. He's got to have it on every possession. So you go from a true point guard to a guy who wants to get his scoring too. Do you think Harden and him can coexist?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do. And I'll explain why. When I look at it, I think about it as, Harden and Westbrook know each other. They play with each other in OKC. They're very familiar with the style. And I get it that James Harden has grown into the player that he is now because he left OKC and had the ability to be a franchise player that we probably didn't expect. I didn't expect James Harden to be.
I certainly did.
Right. Let's be honest. I'm
they
not.
Wouldn't have. Nobody did. Listen, they wouldn't have traded him for Kevin Martin if they thought so.
Well, so basically, what it was is it was a dispute whether it was like, are we going to have 3 max players on our team? But the thing is that James Harden probably would have never had the opportunity to mature to the player that he is behind a Kevin Durant and a Russell Westbrook. But I look at it and I'm like, man, could you imagine that nucleus, man? You're talking about OKC and Golden State for years to come if, in theory, it developed into that.
3 versus 3, and OKC would have won a chip. Listen, Westbrook without Harden.
And
they were up
3-1.
They were up 3-1 without Harden. Remember?
Yeah.
That's why it was so crazy KD left. So your answer is yes. Okay.
Yeah, so and again, to expand on that, I look at it and I'm like, Westbrook is, yes, he is a point guard that needs the ball in his hand, but I think Harden is also kind of working on probably being more of a spot-up shooter. I think he's okay with that. I think he's going to be like the one, he's going to do the move that he's been working on all summer, is the one leg, shooting off one leg, kind of pulling up. And I think they're probably going to alternate and take times where it's going to be Westbrook on the floor only and Harden on the floor for, 5 or 6 minutes or so. So I think they're having the opportunity to have like a great ball dominant point guard. If one gets in foul trouble, which they rarely do, there'll be another player to step up. Let's say one gets injured, then you have a Westbrook still there, or you have a Harden still there. So I think they'll figure it out. It's not going to be.
This is going to be fun, man.
It's going to be fun. I don't have them as my favorites to win the championship. I think we'll talk about that later.
He needs a chip. Listen, he can't end his career. You played with Carmelo Anthony and Paul George at the same time. You played with Kevin Durant, one of the greatest scorers in the history of the game.
Yeah.
A great complimentary
piece. I really.
Hold on. A great complimentary
should have ran it back 1 year. Katie should have ran it back 1 year.
Of course he should have. A great complimentary piece in Ibaka, and then you had Harden off the bench, and now you're gonna play with Harden as a mega MVP superstar coming off a 36-point season, and you have a great complimentary piece again in Capella, and you still don't get that chip. You have to at least get there. Lose in 6 games, whatever, but you got to get there, or he's always going to be. They're going to say, listen, his legacy is going to be great player, did something I thought I'd never see in my lifetime, which was average a triple-double for a season, but not a team player, me, and couldn't coexist with 2 of the greatest scorers in NBA history, Kevin Durant and James Harden. If you liked our video, subscribe to our channel and tune in whenever we post videos, okay? Just press it. Tune in. Subscribe, all right?